I think we can go ahead and start. You ready, Terry?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay. Let's see if we can get this PowerPoint moving. Okay, so welcome to our session of Young Sharks for Youth Entrepreneurship. Thank you to the conference organizers and thank you all for being here. I know this wasn't easy for anybody to put together or all of you to attend, so we appreciate your interest in being at our session. Bear with my laptop as it. First of all, Terry, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Terry Groves. I taught school at Grand Blanc Schools for 23 years. And while I was there, I was a curriculum chair for social studies for 18 of those years. And that job was part-time, half-time, some years full-time, other years. So in my half-time, I taught in grades 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, and 8th grade. So I had a lot of time spent with a lot of different grades. So, and I retired, and now I'm working with Paula at Flint U of M. And I'll let Paula introduce herself first.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Terry. I'm Paula Noss. I'm the director of the Office of Economic Development at U of M Flint. And I've also been a lecturer of economics at U of M Flint for a little over 25 years. About 10 years ago, we started a Center for Economic Education within our economics department at U of M Flint. And that's how I got to know Terry. Right away, we started offering some really cool teacher workshops and student activities around economics, a little bit around entrepreneurship. And we found those to be very successful. We'd always talked about someday, writing some kind of curriculum in economics for elementary or middle school students. And with the job I have now, we had a golden opportunity because within my office, we have a business incubator for adults. And we had written a 5-week business boot camp session. So with Terry working together with me, what we did was we took that curriculum and we modified it so it would be suitable for students in grades 3 through 5. Now, separate from this discussion, Terry has now created also a pilot program for middle school students. So that's going to be called Junior Sharks. So this is Young Sharks, grades 3 through 5, and then we'll have Junior Sharks. Terry, did you want to say anything else about yourself before everybody introduces themselves?
I think I covered it.
Okay. All right. So we'd like to get to know you all a little bit better, just like we would in person. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of taking turns and telling us a little bit about who you are. So maybe we can start with Stan because I see him first.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stan Masters. I serve as a social studies coordinator for the Lenawee ISD and also serve on the MCSS board.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. And then who do I see next? I see Lanice.
Hello, my name is Lanice Jackson. I work for Flint Community Schools at Nethercutt Elementary. I'm a 3rd grade teacher, but I also serve as the social studies chair there.
Lanice, I may have met you before, so good to see you again. And how do I say your name? Is it Olena? Olena? Oh, I can't hear you. You're muted.
Hello, everyone. I'm Olena Daniluk, and I work at Wayne State University in Technology Commercialization Office, Tech Transfer. And I joined this conference because I support genocide curriculum, and I'm just very interested to social studies and all programs existing. And also we have Ukrainian American School. So and we are supporting schools as Ukrainians. So thank you so much for keeping me here.
Great, thank you. And maybe we'll connect because within our office, we also do tech transfer. So this will be a good connection. Thank you. How about Caitlyn?
is Caitlyn Gothard. I teach in Rochester. I'm a fourth grade teacher, and I'm working with our curriculum department to help make a new curriculum for social studies. So that's why I'm here.
Great.
I'm excited
Welcome.
to learn.
Thank you. And Joy.
Hi, I'm Joy Coyer, and teaches my 24th year teaching third grade. I'm also on the Michigan Council of Social Studies Board, and I'm also one of the authors of the Giants curriculum. So I'm just interested in seeing how you use entrepreneurship with these students, and maybe possibility to incorporate some of this with some of the resources that we have on the Giants website. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Brian.
Good evening, everyone. Brian Ewell, instructional specialist in the Flint School District. Worked in the social studies curriculum department for many years, and really truly love the conferences that I've attended in the past.
Wonderful. Very nice to meet all of you. Have I missed anybody? I apologize if I did. Anybody else? Okay, well, we've got a great group. Thank you. I appreciate it. So my laptop, I said, is being a little stubborn going from slide to slide. So there we go. So first of all, what is the Young Sharks program? I'll start with that, and then Terry can fill in the blanks. So the way we're going to run the session today is, we'll provide some introductory material, and then Terry, since she's the one that's had experience in the elementary school classrooms, she's the one that will cover the content in the Young Sharks that we're going to learn about today. But just as a little bit of background, Young Sharks is really, there's two components to Young Sharks that go together. One of them is that really great curriculum that you all could use in your classrooms with a series of mostly 40-minute lesson plans and worksheets. We've converted a lot of those worksheets over to Google Worksheets. It's all designed to fit into what you need to be teaching already. So Terry was very deliberate about saying, I know that teachers only have X number of hours in a day, and the last thing they need to do is try and figure out how to fit one more thing in. How are you going to fit entrepreneurship in there? She did a really good job of making sure that she incorporated a lot of different content areas that you're already teaching into this curriculum. So it's curriculum, and then if you choose to do so, what we've done in Genesee County is we had each classroom that participated, they created groups of 3 to 4 students in a team of a business. They came up with their business idea. They created a pitch within their classrooms. They chose one winning team that went on to a competition in downtown Flint last year, where they pitched their idea, and then we had winners at the end of the day. So it's more than a curriculum. It's also potentially, it gives you the opportunity to have that larger event for the kids, which you may or may not choose to do. Terry, did you want to add something to that?
No, the whole curriculum builds towards them giving a pitch and writing a business plan, and that's in the end. So it builds towards that. I thought I would tell you a little bit. Our introduction to the curriculum states that this is an introduction to entrepreneurship and the entrepreneur mindset, which provides core principles, ideas, and easy to implement activities that teach the fundamentals of entrepreneurship using economic concepts that are tied to the state of Michigan standards. The materials serve as a foundation for inspiring young entrepreneurs by furthering their interest in entrepreneurship, economics, and innovation. Each lesson helps students become aware of key entrepreneurship and economic principles and vocabulary, while also demonstrating their comprehension of the concepts by applying them to multiple exercises. Students will be guided step by step from idea to launch of their business. These primary goals will help to remove barriers that have typically kept students from pursuing further investigation and application of entrepreneurship. That's our introduction to it. So
thank you.
Paula, I think has a good video that you'd like to see.
Yeah, and so just to reinforce a couple of things that Terry talked about, we realize that most kids won't be entrepreneurs, right? But within this curriculum, what we're really trying to get them to do is to develop that entrepreneurial mindset, all those things that go into being an entrepreneur, right? And encourage creativity. So it's more than just, how do you create a product and how do you move that idea forward? But it's all those things you get along the way, working in a team and, making decisions and, learning those key academic principles as well.
And problem solving too. It's all about problem solving.
So we have a few videos. We're going to show you one of them, and I think it will help to reinforce kind of what the look of the program is and, what one teacher had to say about the program.
Paula, I think you need to share the audio, or at least I can't hear it. Maybe I'm the only one.
I can't hear it either.
Oh, I thought I'd shared the audio. I'm going to stop screen sharing for a minute and reshare maybe. Maybe that's it. One moment, please. Let me try that. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, let's try that again. Are you able to hear it?
There's a little checkbox that share audio from the computer sound. I can't hear it, no.
Okay. Okay. Let me see. Share sound, optimize for video clip, maybe. I'll do that too. Screen. We'll try it again. If it doesn't work, I'll skip the slide because maybe it's not allowing me to share sound. Let's see. When we're talking about the entrepreneurial mindset, what we're looking at is team building, leadership, risk taking.
These are very tangible things that these children are learning that is going to allow them to not only become successful entrepreneurs, hopefully, but allow them to be successful wherever their life takes them.
Students typically are introduced to some of these concepts in middle school or high school. What we like to do is provide the foundation for students at a much younger grade level.
At U of M Flint, we want children to be aware that this exists and they can frame themselves around that analogy of entrepreneurship.
And that's what this program is about. The Young Sharks program takes students into the real world. So much of what they have had to do is perform in the textbook.
And anytime you're allowing them to not be such in a box, you're going to get so much more innovation and creativity out of them.
Creativity is the base of everything. You create, you engage yourself in an environment. You can be anything you want when you start creating.
There's some curriculum out there, but it really wasn't addressing the needs of the teachers. So we very intentionally designed a curriculum that not only teaches economics and entrepreneurship, but it also links it to other fields so that the teacher can fit it into their already very busy school day.
We've done math, a little bit of social studies in there, and at the end is this amazing project and this amazing opportunity to go and present in front of hundreds of other kids. This curriculum has allowed us to bring hands-on learning opportunities with innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship into our classrooms in a meaningful way.
And it doesn't need to be just about creating a business. It's about how it is to adapt in business, how it is to adapt in the workforce. We want them to acquire those skills so they actually can be ready in an environment of the future of work.
It was amazing to see so many young students so excited about entrepreneurship, and to hear them reciting in 4th and 5th grade return on investment and looking at marketing tells me right there that this program is going to drive the future of Michigan.
Okay, so any questions so far? Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Terry, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. All right. So what we thought we would do is, at this point, Terry was going to go through each one of these chapters with the lessons in it and just kind of briefly think about what topics are covered in each and how she's approached those lesson plans. So Terry, if you want to just let me know every time you want me to switch a slide, I can move on to the next slide.
Okay. This is made up of 3 chapters. Chapter 1, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur? And there's 3 lessons with chapter 1. Chapter 2, what does an entrepreneur need to do? And there are 5 lessons that last roughly 35-40 minutes. And then chapter 3, what does an entrepreneur have to do? And again, there's 5 lessons that go with that too. So 13 lessons total. I think it took, last year, it takes basically 3 weeks to get through if you have a block of 35-40 minute lessons where you can do social studies in. So chapter 1, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur? We started out with lesson number 1. What does the term entrepreneur mean? And we just explore what an entrepreneur is. And just do some discussion with it. They fill out a sheet of rewards and risks of owning a business, getting them to start thinking about it. And then lesson number 2. Go to lesson number 2. Lesson number 2 is to understand the steps to starting a business. And we have a nice little trade book that we can read to them. Jasmine launches a startup, and it's all about this little girl who thinks that kids in the hospital would like cards to cheer them up and make them happier. And so she goes about determining how to set up this business. And what problem did she solve? Did she want to solve? Who were her customers? What did she discover about her product? What did she need people to do? What personality characteristics did Jasmine have? So we read the story and answer those questions. And it's also a reading lesson, the comprehension questions. Then lesson number 3, to learn about Steve Jobs, a little bit about Steve Jobs and how he was an entrepreneur. We have a brief biography that's at about their level. And the kids read the biography, and then we have a little activity we do with them. There's some questions that they can answer, so they know about a real life. We learned about Jasmine.
Terry, you want to take a little bit of time to talk about how each lesson is set up in terms of, as we're moving through these slides, you always have a learning objective. You want to talk about how each lesson is set up?
Yep, I can do that.
Okay.
Each lesson starts out with a learning objective, learning target, and concepts are listed, the time allowed for the class. And then there's a warm-up question or warm-up things to talk about to get the kids primed for it. And then usually a group activity, they can do a group activity. And then an individual activity. And then an assessment. Not all lessons have a group activity, individual activity, and then assessment, but they have at least 2 or 3 of those.
So for everybody who's in the session here, kind of for your reference, as I'm kind of scrolling from slide to slide as Terry's talking, that's for a lot of these lessons, those are the different components that we're going through on each slide as she's talking.
Mm-hmm. So for Steve Jobs, we asked the students to list 3 words that described Steve Jobs, list 2 characteristics that Steve Jobs showed, name a risk and a reward that Steve Jobs experienced, describe the impact of one of the goods that Steve Jobs introduced to the marketplace. And we look at both to Jasmine, we look at the characteristics that she had that enabled her to be an entrepreneur, and also we looked at Steve Jobs and identified some characteristics that he had, personality characteristics that allowed him to be an entrepreneur. So that is what we do with chapter 1. And then we can go on to chapter 2. Are there any questions? No? Okay, lesson number 1, chapter 2, to think creatively about ideas for businesses. We're trying to get those kids to be thinking of something they could do. And so we get them to think of a problem or a need that they have in their community and what they could do to solve that need so they can help them come up with a business idea. Go through the idea. Oh, we came up with an idea pathway, which was a graphic, a kind of fun graphic for them to see if they could proceed with their idea or if they should change it slightly or think of a new one. And then we asked them to finish the lesson by drawing a picture of their good or service. And one thing we asked them to do, Steve Jobs is quoted as saying he demanded his employees to describe a product's function or purpose in 30 seconds. And so we asked the students to create a 30-second commercial for their good or service, to include the name of the good or service, the price, the benefits, where and how it can be produced. That was a fun lesson. Questions?
One thing I should point out is, Terry, when you wrote the curriculum, you realized that not every teacher will want to use every lesson, right? So there's at least one lesson we're going to get to that some teachers are not using, and we know that. So you're going to find that when you look through the curriculum notebook, there are some things that you'll have time for and some things you won't. So you'll have to make that choice yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Then lesson number 2. To think about the production process and what resources will be needed to produce the good or service. So they're going to think about how they're going to make their good or in how they're going to sell their service and what resources will you need. So we have them come up with a description of how they're going to make it. And then we tell them to list the resources, the things they're going to need to make it. And then we have them categorize those resources as natural resources, human resources, and capital resources. And these are the definitions of them. See, we're getting that old econ in here. We used, in the group activity, we used the example of a lemonade stand to categorize the resources. What do you need to get a lemonade stand up and running? You need water, natural resource. You need the person who sells the lemonade and the person who makes the lemonade. Those are our human resources. And our capital resources are the lemonade stand, the pitcher. Those are the capital resources. So we start with a real simple example that they can understand. We put some inputs won't fit into any of the categories. Those are often intermediate goods, such as sugar, the cups. Because sometimes you get into an argument with the kids about what these things are. And then for an assignment, we ask the students to make a list of the resources they'll need to produce a good or service. Then ask them to categorize the resources on the worksheet. Lesson number 3, who's going to buy your good or service? And your learning target is to describe who your customers are. Warm-up question, who are you going to sell your product to? What are the ages and habits of your customers? And these are things that are taken from the real world customer profile handout. We have them fill out a customer profile. Ask students to learn to think about who their target is. And then we end up asking each student to draw a picture of their customers and write their profile. Lesson number 4, how do you get feedback about your idea? Okay. What do others think about your business idea? How are you going to find out what they think? So we do concept statement, another real life term. We're going to have them do it. They fill out a preliminary description of a good or service, who the entrepreneur is, what their good or service is, how their good or service is superior to the competition, if it already exists. Lesson number 4. A question concept test. A questionnaire that the entrepreneur uses to get feedback on the concept idea. What do people think of your product? And ask, the students will complete the concept statement worksheet. Fill out the concept statement portion, read your statement to 2 people and ask them to fill in responses to your questions.
So what we would typically do in one of our educator workshops is we would work through each one of these lessons, and we'd give you the handouts and everybody would be kind of doing it in groups. And so in this format, it's a little less dynamic. I realize that, but the way Terry has written the curriculum is that there's a lot of group work, a lot of teamwork, and the kids do stay very engaged in it because it's fun. So like in this section, you're going to fill out your concept statement, but then you're going to go to your friend and say, I've got this great idea. What do you think about it? Knowing that as an entrepreneur, really you don't want to ask your family, is this a great idea? Because probably your family is just going to say yes, unless they're very honest with you, right? So don't ask your friends and family, ask other people who might be a little more critical of your idea, right? So those are the kinds of things we're trying to get the kids to understand.
And lesson number 5, how do you advertise your business? Market your business. So we get them to try to start thinking about it. We have them draw an advertisement. And
Yeah,
then,
Terry, why do you have the kids drawing? I mean, you have a couple drawing assignments, at least 2 of them. So if you can talk a little bit about different things you're trying to incorporate into the curriculum. It isn't just about entrepreneurship. You want to talk a little bit about that too? Like with
it's integrated. Yeah, it's integrating the different subjects into it. Like there was a reading lesson with Steve Jobs, and artwork. So we have a little bit of art in it with their drawing, and we have group work where they're working together as a team, and we have a lot of. It's not just paper pencil. It's a lot of different modes of learning instruction. So, chapter 3, what does an entrepreneur have to do? Learning objections, we're going to calculate production costs and set a price. Students will also learn how to set a selling price for their goods or services, which is a hard thing to do. They have trouble with that because they think they just come up with a number and they think that's going to work okay, and they don't know why it will work and why it won't work. So the first lesson is to set a price for your good or service. You'll need to calculate how much it costs to produce your product. That's what's most important. And then how much you'll sell it for and what you'll make as a profit. Remember that in an earlier lesson, you made a list of all the resources that will be needed to produce your good or service. There are 2 types of costs. They are fixed costs and variable cost. Your total cost is made up of fixed plus variable costs. These are an example of your fixed and variable costs. Fixed cost is the cost of fixed inputs in the production process. They stay the same regardless of how much you produce. For example, regardless of the number of cookies you produce, the rent you pay for your bakery building will stay the same. Variable costs, the cost of variable inputs in the production process, they vary depending on how much you produce. If you're going to produce more cookies, you need to buy more sugar.
So this is a particular lesson that a lot of teachers kind of decided not to use in their lessons because they thought it was a little confusing for the students. So I think it's good to have it there just in case you want to talk about it. But again, you may not want to use this particular lesson. Sometimes it's good for the kids, I think, to hear these concepts early on, and they may not completely understand them, but they'll hear them again in middle school and high school when they get to college. So I guess the idea is just kind of introducing the lesson for now.
And all these lessons end up towards the end of creating their pitch. And that's kind of like your test grade at the end of it. Okay.
Sorry, I was just reading the chat, so I appreciate the comments. Thank you. I look a little distracted, but that's why I appreciate that.
Okay, lesson number 2, creating a business plan. This is, we took the lesson plan that U of M gives adults, and we simplified it down to a 4th grade level.
So what we use
And-
is, you've probably, sorry, Terry, we've probably heard the business model canvas. What we do with the adult entrepreneurs is we use the business model canvas. So what we did was we took that and Terry modified it in a way that would be understandable for the elementary school students.
What would you put in a plan for your business? Okay, what's on this business plan is they write who will help them, what will they do, who are your customers, how will you do it, what do you need, how do you interact with your customers, how do you reach your customers, what are your costs of production, how much will you make? So we had the kids go through, we put it down on one sheet and we have them fill it out the best they can. And some of that is a little confusing, but this is all things that we talked about with them in the curriculum. So they kind of know what to put down. And then here comes the pitch. To prepare and present a persuasive speech about your business idea to convince an investor to provide financial support. We call this a business pitch or the pitch. And that's what all this is building up to. So this can be your test grade if that's what you need. It all builds to this. From the beginning with their idea all the way through until they have their pitch. How would you convince someone to invest in your business? Go through each of the elements of the business pitch with the students, providing examples along the way. You may also want to show videos from pitch competitions to illustrate. Show them a section from Shark Tank on TV. A simple pitch, and let them see what they do on Shark Tank, because it's a good example of these pitches.
So what we also do is we provide a sample pitch deck, and that made it a lot easier for the educators last year. So each student knew on each slide, what they would be covering. So this is like the name of my company. This is the problem it solves. These are the team members. This is what they do. And then when they competed, they all kind of had the same template. So it was easier to kind of put together and also to judge them when it came to actually figuring out who's going to win the pitch competition. But I have to say, and I think Terry will reinforce that, it was amazing to see what those kids did on stage. I never could have done it, but they were just phenomenal. I think everybody was just, even people I know who have kids currently that age kind of couldn't believe how well they did. So I think that's a kind of a testament to their kind of enthusiasm for the program too. They're interested in it.
Lesson number 3, developing a pitch. Yep, well, we've already gone through that. So we can go to the next slide. Lesson 4, how to find investors for your business. And we're just on the question, why do you need money to start your business? How are you going to get money to start up your business? Who are you going to go to? You're going to go to your parents, or you're going to go to, here's startup funding, your personal savings, friends and family, small business loan, crowdfunding, business pitch competitions. all ways of getting money to start your business. Oh, ask the class for volunteers to pretend that they're going to the bank to ask for a loan and have them act out the scenario for the class, remembering to be professional and to provide the banker with their business plan. It's a great thing to do to act it out. And their assignment asked students to write about who they had asked for startup funds. Lesson number 5, earning a profit. To explore what it means for business to be earning a profit and how profit's calculated. This is kind of a tricky lesson too. Total revenue, how much money the business brings in. So your total revenue equals your price times your quantity. The price of your product multiplied by the number of products. Total cost is how much it costs to produce your product. Total cost equals cost per unit times quantity produced. How much it costs to produce 1 unit of your product. And so we do a little activity where we go through and do this with the kids using a sample. Terry's Dog Treat Factory, Bakery. So this is, okay. And so once we go through Terry's Tasty Dog Treat Bakery with the kids, then we give them another sample sheet where the Cookie Factory, and we have them work through this simple math, but it you know, it's kind of can be a little tricky for some kids, I think, but they can do it.
So there was just a comment in the chat. Absolutely, you know, the idea of bringing a banker in. Part of what Terry and I used to do is more financial literacy aspect, especially with some of our kind of underserved communities. We thought it was really important to do that. This would be a good chance to bring a banker in. And then in some of the earlier sessions, you know, if you can get local entrepreneurs to come in that the kids can relate to, I think that's a really great idea too. So we do that in our own business boot camp. We bring in entrepreneurs to tell their story. It's like, it's not easy, it's a struggle, you know, they need to know that, but they also need to know some of the good things that go along with it. So yes, if you're considering adopting a similar curriculum, I think it's important to bring in various guest speakers. That's a great idea. And then this whole section here, you know, when we implemented this program just 2 years ago, Terry wanted it to be implemented in the fall because there were a lot of schools that were doing market day. So she thought that it would be really helpful for them to get through, especially this part of the curriculum, because the teachers were teaching this as part of market day anyway. So, and then I think that is it for this. So I want you to make sure you have my contact information there. You have my email address and cell phone number. We're going to continue to talk, but I'm going to stop sharing the screen in a minute. Did somebody have something to add?
I have a question. I'm just curious, do you do this as your social studies curriculum, or do you do this like an after school club, or do you incorporate this just within the general day? Is this used as enrichment? Where does this fit into like a regular day of curriculum?
So I'll let Terry address this. I thought it was really important to have this opportunity for all the students. So we're also working on some after school curriculum, but some of those students we all know kind of self-select. But my goal is to have this in the hands of every 4th grade teacher in the state of Michigan, so that year after year after year, if they decide they have time to implement at least some of these components, they have the tools to be able to do that. But Terry, did you want to more accurately address the question?
Well, I think it can be part of either of those 3 programs. It can be done in the classroom. And it could be done after school or a gifted program, I suppose. So it could be done in either one of them, but it's ideal in the classroom. It's made for the classroom, 35-minute lessons, and it is based on the state standards too. So I know our teachers that used this last year, they did a few brief economic lessons. I know the market economy. This is an example of the market economy, how the market economy works. And if they know what the market economy is, they know how it works through this.
It's a wonderful
And so
program. It sounds great. Yeah. I teach third grade, but I do know every year our fourth grade teachers do market day. And so just a wonderful way to incorporate that in that, or to do something even separate for that, just as something to launch off from.
Thank you. Good comment.
We've in Grand Blanc schools, a lot of our fourth grade are doing it this year. They did it last year too.
I was curious how it affected students this year, especially during COVID, when there's so much work that needs to be partners. So I didn't know how that affected that for COVID purposes.
I think the fourth grade teachers at Grand Blanc, they said one of their comments, they're just so glad to have something different to do in class, something besides reading and math and writing.
In terms of, so some of the schools that have gone back, at least, partly in person, that they're getting around that question asked more easily. I don't know the answer to if you're completely virtual, if there's a way for students, it's complicated for a teacher at that point, right? To create student teams. Maybe it has to be an individual project at that point, which isn't ideal, but hopefully in the fall, we'll all be back to something slightly more normal. We can only hope, right? But yeah, that's a struggle.
I think a lot of the teachers put in Zoom rooms. They can put small groups of kids in a Zoom room.
That would be the way around it, because I know, for example, Flint schools, you aren't back yet, right? I think you're still virtual.
Yeah, they're
still virtual. Yes, working on getting back to a hybrid model.
Okay. So kind of planning ahead for next year. I mean, if any of you think your districts would be interested in it, what Terry and I have been doing is we had a professional development for Genesee County teachers. We just did one for Oakland schools in the fall. We might be doing one for Kalamazoo schools. It doesn't have to be a whole district or whole school. If you're interested in individually, regardless, certainly contact me. And we can talk more if you think you might be interested in implementing the curriculum. Does anybody have any other questions?
Thanks so much for sharing tonight.
Well, thank you all for being here. You have a good evening.
Thank you. It was really very, very interesting. And I know, like in our school, because it's private school, but teachers were asking me to develop such a kind of like lesson plan to teach them for students.
Oh.
It was really just, thanks.
So if your school is interested, we can talk to your school about the curriculum. Honestly, being at a university, the cost of the curriculum is not, it's very reasonable, I have to tell you. We like the teachers to have a physical notebook. I have one in front of me. Terry probably has one too. It has all the lessons. It has, extra copy of the worksheets. It has the PowerPoint. And I think it's just nice for you to have that as an instructor. So,
I will talk to principal. I will talk to teachers, and I will be back to you. Thank you so much.
It's not really, it's not a profit-making endeavor for us, for sure. We just want all of you to have the curriculum. So anyway, thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.